Welcome back to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. Ever listen to this podcast? Well, have you ever listened to this podcast? If you have, you may have asked yourself, man, I wonder if they could get another guitar instructor on there. That would make it 33% better. Well, today you're going to get your wish with special guest Thomas Murphy. Stay tuned.
This whole thing is all for you.
All right, so the green bars mean we're rolling.
Nice. Green bars are good.
Technically, the green bars are rolling. So.
Yes, exactly.
So green bar is good. I like that. Well, hey, guys, welcome to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Scott and
Ryan.
And today with...
Thomas.
Yes.
Yes, so we'd like to welcome my good, dear friend, Thomas Murphy.
Fellow professional musician.
Hello,
That's right.
everyone.
Absolutely.
Did he say magician or musician?
Magician.
Well, magician also.
I only know you from your magic work. I didn't know you play guitar. Is that true?
Magician is only on Sunday.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Exactly.
So we're going to talk about where the two parts of the lady go after you saw her in half.
Oh, exactly. That's actually going to be a little bit after dark kind of thing. That's going to be something on a special kind
Well,
of
it is
podcast.
October, so I'm going to
18
take
and
things,
up kind of conversation. You know what I mean?
I'm going to take things in more of a horror direction.
Nicely.
today.
Well, as Ryan is one to do. He always does
Yes.
the horror direction.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, today's topic, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about something that I think someone very famous once said, that rock is dead. And the question I have is that true? Is rock actually dead?
I want to know who this famous person is.
Some person, I don't know, somebody somewhere who said something. I think he likes attention. That's all I know.
He likes attention.
That might be the rumor. But
Does he have a penchant for grease paint?
I don't know if that's what it is. I thought it was actually
Famous
just
and attention, so you're talking about Ryan.
Yes, exactly. And affinity for grease paint.
Well, here's the thing, though. This seems like it's always a big hornet's nest that gets stirred up. Is it actually dead? And I think that it depends on how you want to look at it. My take on it, because I think if you talk about is it a viable mainstream form of music that everybody listens to, no, it's not. It's dead in that regard. But if you look at like ticket sales, like one of the biggest tours going on right now is the stadium tour, the Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Poison tour, which is playing stadiums everywhere. Metallica is huge. They're always in the top 10, 15. Iron Maiden's always in the top 10, 15. Guns N' Roses. As far as like Trans-Siberian Orchestra, those guys are making the most money in terms of ticket sales. So we can't be dead. But like, what do you guys think about that? I mean, go ahead and jump in, whoever wants to take it.
I'll go as my opinion. Yes, rock is dead. So thank you.
So we'll all just jump out the window that's nearest close. Everyone just do it right now.
So thanks to all of our fan out there for tuning in.
Exactly.
Is rock dead? I say no. And just by what you just said about the biggest stadium tour this summer was, Def Leppard and Joan Jett and Poison and Motley Crue.
Yeah.
Those are all bands from when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And they're still selling
arenas.
Yeah, stadiums.
Journey's an arena band. You know what I mean?
And Journey slayed on the last tour. Yeah.
Dude, the fact that Iron Maiden can literally sell out 350,000 people in like Sao Paulo, Brazil or whatever, or Rock in Rio.
Yeah. Well, like Ryan, I like to say, though, the 90s never happened in South America. And then, or in Japan, and most of Europe as well. The 90s never existed. Somebody just skipped the 90s. I'm not sure how that worked, but they were really lucky in that regard.
So this is also informational stuff that we can use.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Everybody,
yes,
if you live in South America, just so you know, there was a decade from 1990 to 2000 called the 90s.
Yes.
I know you didn't experience it, and I really am envious that you didn't. But you didn't have to go through that. So you guys could still have Iron Maiden playing 300,000 seats.
Absolutely.
Places.
And just some background. So, Tom, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? We're all kind of, we all teach at the same place.
I know who I am.
Professional musician for decades.
Fellow MI grad.
Fellow MI grad, yes. So Scott and I have that.
Yep.
Just been playing forever. And, I love music. I love guitar. I still love listening to music. I know a lot of people, I always pull the whole I'm old thing, and back in my day,
which people love that, by the way. They can't get enough of that.
They do.
You know what I mean?
This isn't about like bread bags on your feet and walking 3 miles.
Tell me about how
like
a nickel once bought you a movie. Come on.
I'm not that old. Maybe you, but not me. But when you think back to when we were younger, and you couldn't wait to like go over to your buddy's house on the weekend, and you'd hop on your Schwinn bike, and you've got like the new 3 albums that you just bought at Tower under your arms, and you ride over with one hand on the handlebar and sat sat and listened to that album front and back.
Start to finish.
And it was amazing. It's times that I'll never forget.
Reading the liner notes as you go.
Oh,
and stuff. Yeah, man.
Dude, remember like waiting to hear what the first song on side 2 of your cassette was going to be?
Especially the first half was awesome. You're like,
Yeah,
dude, what's the next one going to be like? Oh my God.
Until it skipped, and then you had to put the little matchbook underneath.
On the records, yeah.
Oh man, that's so. I mean, that's funny though. That's something that's very warm and nostalgic to people who grew up with that. But I think you talk to someone who's under 20, they don't have any understanding what you're talking about. It doesn't make sense to them at all. They're like, why did you care? I mean, this music's just everywhere. It's like tap water. Why would you care? You know what I mean? And it's really sad. I think there's a lot that's missing in that younger generation. You know what I mean?
But the younger generation, and this is one of my beefs with the younger generation, is, and this is where I start sounding old. I had racks of albums.
Yeah.
And there was no way to put those in your car, you
Right.
know, so
Yep.
you had to listen to those at home until you got the Fisher dual cassette, recorder and that, and then you can make tapes, and then you put them in your car when you're driving around and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But kids today can literally have everything that we had, the 400 albums or whatever we had, on their phone. Or, 20 years ago it was the iPod or whatever, and you can
Right.
just pull it out of your pocket
Yep.
and listen to all this stuff.
Yeah, there was no listening to the radio, waiting for your favorite song to come on, and then you hit record a split second after it starts.
Miss like the first 4 seconds of the song.
Right, yeah.
How many
totally.
times do you remember calling up K-Zap or 93 Rock and going, hi, can you play blah, blah, blah from blah, blah, blah? And then you had to sit there and wait for it to come on,
Totally.
I remember turning on like 98 Rock and then hearing something that I'd never heard before and think, holy crap, what's this? Oh my God, is this the new Metallica or is this new Van Halen? What is this? You know what I mean? And being just like blown away. That's an experience I think that, and there's an investment in music that people who are around our age like had that the younger people don't have. Because I think what you're saying about the iPod is actually kind of nostalgic too, because nowadays they just stream it and they don't even own anything. They have a bunch of channels on Spotify and their friends send them playlists on YouTube, and that's as much investment in music as they have. Which is incredible to me that they can be so detached from it. I don't know if you guys have experienced this as instructors, but you'll ask someone like, well, what kind of music do you like? And very often they can't answer the question.
I don't know.
And exactly, like, well, do you like rock, pop, jazz, blues? Like, where are you coming from? I don't know. Well, who's some of your
or
favorite
they'll
artists?
say like rock, and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like, who are some of your favorite artists? I don't really listen to like artists. I'm like, well, technically, if you listen to music, you're listening to artists.
So what songs do you listen to?
And it's really hard for them to come back with where we could have gone like, what's your favorite artist? And it's
my
like,
top
how
20.
much time do you have?
Yeah, totally. And I'll tell you, every person that ever played in that band, and then they left and went to this other band.
What guitars they use, what strings they used,
yeah.
and stuff. You know what I mean?
So that's one of the things that I actually talked about with a buddy of mine not too long ago is how did we know about all these bands? I mean, obviously you knew about Scorpions, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all the bands that were
Red
on.
Magazine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but there was like that band from Prophet. Do you guys remember Prophet?
I don't remember Prophet.
No.
Yeah.
Prophet was a band from New York that had Ted Poley. That went on to be with Danger Danger.
Love Ted Poley, yeah.
Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he was the drummer.
Oh,
back
what
then.
a trip. Wow.
And he actually sang some of the songs too, but they were amazing. And it's like me and 2 other people knew who they were. And I'm like, how did nobody else know about
So this
this?
is pre-Danger Danger, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure they all knew about him on the East Coast because they were an East Coast band. But, we're 3,000 miles away. And I'm like, how did I hear about these?
Yeah,
Why
cool.
did I have both their albums?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because somebody says something to somebody who says something to somebody, and it kind of through the grapevine. I think also back in the day, radio was a viable thing. You found out about new bands because they put a new single on the radio, or MTV, which, believe it or not, at one time played music. That's where the name comes from.
Well, and then even and then along with all that, you'd have a band in your pocket, which meant, hey, I've got this cassette, I've got this, hey, I've got the real dope. Here's this band Prophet that you've never heard of, and that fun, that word of mouth thing, like, hey, here's this thing that's mine, and I'll share it with you. And
it's
now
like, oh, you're kind of like this band. Here's this other band you should check out. Those guys are really cool. You might like that kind of thing. The whole thing. I think when we were stuff, I think that you kind of identified yourself largely by what kind of music you like. That was a part of who you were. You know what I mean? Like I'm a Sabotage, Rush, Queensryche guy. That kind of like, oh, you're an Iron Maiden, Metallica guy. Okay, cool. Now I know a lot more about you. You kind of knew like that kind of thing. That was part of your identity back then. I don't think people now kind of fealty to that sort of idea.
And I think socially there's pros and cons to that. I mean, I am glad that my teenage students aren't necessarily part of like one group at school, and they're free to like everything.
Yeah.
So, the rock kids don't get picked on by the jocks.
Sadly, in my experience, it's like the rock kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a hypothetical I'm drawing. I don't know what the
three rock kids at the 6,000th person high school, they're there.
I do think there's value in it's okay to like everything. So there's the other side of that coin.
But that was me growing up. So when I was growing up, I was the Maiden, Scorpions, Judas Priest guy. But then I was also listening to Toto, Journey, and because guitar players.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
right.
listen to all these guitar players. But then I was also listening to like New Edition and Paul Abdul and R&B music.
Well, back
and
then they
stuff
had
like that.
great music in that music. There was killer playing in those music.
But back then, if you want to go back even further to when we were really young kids, on 70s radio, when you listened to that one station that you listened to, you heard, Frampton and Journey and that, but then you also heard like Afternoon Delight and Elton
like
John
Commodores and stuff. And,
Commodores. You heard everything, and that's why I really loved our era of growing up, because you were able to hear all the different genres on one station.
That's true.
Yep, total melting pot.
So pulling that forward to now, though, I definitely feel like there's a hunger amongst a certain percentage of the young people who want to kind of emulate that kind of classic era of rock music. I feel like they kind of want to be the next one to pick that torch up. I think partially because the music that's popular now is so not music. It's all electronic based, or it's rap and hip hop. There's really not much there. So, and it'd be hard to get passionate about something like an EDM artist. That to me, maybe someone out there is, but it seems like the music itself doesn't take itself that passionately.
I mean, I think the EDM thing is kind of what raves are now.
Yeah, but it's not about the music. It's about what you're doing, right? It's not about the music. It's going to be like, hey, 50 years from now, this is going to mean so much to me. You know what I mean? It's
I definitely can't imagine myself just listening to EDM all day and feeling inspired.
Yes.
But definitely
or passionate about wanting to hear it again and like
right from a musical perspective, definitely not. But the thing that was cool about that is that in the same way you might have a band in your pocket and you'd share with somebody, right? The only way you'd know how to get to a rave is if your friend told you about it, and then you'd be somewhere then you'd go trespassing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but going to the whole like kind of rock is dead thing, and doing the old geezer thing and then the young kid thing. We go out a lot and we see other bands that are playing, or bands that roll into town. Just saw the Dead Daisies, a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
amazing.
man.
That lead singer, though, I'm not sure about him. I don't think he's going to make it too far, in that band. He's no good. I don't know.
Sadly, Glenn was not there.
Oh, he wasn't?
No, Glenn had COVID.
What a bummer.
So they had Dino, who's
I know
amazing.
Dino is. He's awesome. He's
just
great,
amazing.
Great
so
singer.
it was great. I was
probably
bummed.
out of Whitesnake for the tour, I'm guessing.
Yep. I was bummed that Glenn was not there, because that's who I really wanted to see on top of everybody else.
Doug's a pretty good. He's a pretty good consolation prize,
Brian Tichy on drums.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an amazing band, but I really wanted to see Glenn. But then when I knew Dino was there, I was like, all right, it's going to be good. But everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but I would say 98.3% of the people that were in there were our age,
Yeah.
But kids don't go to local clubs to see bands anymore.
Yeah. They go to festivals, basically.
They go to festivals, exactly.
Yeah.
And with Aftershock coming up, it's like that's what they're talking about.
Because that's such a bad representation, because most of the bands in those things suck ass. You know what I mean? There's like 3 good bands and like 50 bands that just completely no business being there.
But once again, who are the headlining bands?
Yeah, it's like Anthrax, Ozzy Osbourne, Black
Sabbath,
Kiss,
and Slipknot, and My Chemical Romance. And when you think about it, like My Chemical Romance, I'm not sure when they came out, but
I bet Judith can tell you something.
Like early, I want to say like early 2000s. Yeah.
So we're still talking a band that's 20 years old.
That's so funny, because we think of that as a new band. Like
Right.
Sevenfold, Mike, all those guys are so new. Like, oh yeah, they're 24 years old now.
Yeah,
You know what
dude,
I mean?
I still feel like Paramore is a new band.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah, and I've had like conversations with students before where we'll start talking about guitar heroes, and my brain starts going like, who are the guitar heroes now?
Yeah,
you know, and I'm not
guitar
talking
player
about
for
like
this,
guys on YouTube that are phenomenal, because there's some great guys on
It's so
YouTube.
fragmented right now. That's the thing. There's not any one culture that everyone. They experience their own unique culture that they kind of curate for themselves. So like an artist like Polyphia, for instance, is a really big artist amongst certain groups of progressive metal fans, right? Animals as leaders. But if you step 1 second out of that little bubble, no one's ever heard of them.
Now,
In that bubble, they're huge, but nobody else outside the bubble knows who that is.
But we started going down this rabbit hole, and I'm like, well, John Mayer, and I'm like, John Mayer's like 25 years old now.
Yeah.
I mean,
and John Mayer is really seen as a pop artist. He's not really seen as a guitar hero. And Joe Bonamassa is another one too, but he's only known in the blues circles.
Yeah.
So anyone outside the blues circles has never heard
and
of Joe
Animals
Bonamassa.
as leaders.
Yeah, anyone outside the prog
they're
circle.
still 10 or 12 years old
Yeah.
too.
Oh, right,
So
totally.
like, who's the new?
There isn't one.
You know, and that was our thing of growing up. It was like, well, who's going to take the throne?
Yeah.
You know, who's the newest guitar
Well, there's
player?
Eddie and then a bunch of pretenders. That's basically what it is. You know what I mean?
Man. Randy, Ingve. I love Eddie. Okay, so
You better stop that sentence right there.
We'll
Yeah,
have a
so-
whole podcast on that someday.
yeah, totally. So now, interesting side note: have you guys seen the cover on the latest issue of Guitar World?
Vi and Polyphia.
Ding, ding, ding. we had a previous episode where we discussed Polyphia, the
Yes.
sound of solving a Rubik's cube.
Yes, exactly. I think that's mostly a written test to get into that.
I think
Well, so sadly, a lot of the music that is coming out, and the guitar players are phenomenal.
Yes,
I
right.
mean,
No
they're
doubt.
technically just. I can't even fathom it, what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
But from the era that I grew up in, the music that I love, it's very melodic oriented. So for me, I have a very hard time listening to, and everybody told you, if you want to learn music, you have to get into jazz and, you know, Charlie Parker and all that.
Yep.
And I can listen to it and appreciate it for what it is, and you can break it down and, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
look at what he played, and it's like, oh, now I see what he did there.
Intellectually very interesting.
It is,
Yeah.
but I can't listen to it for a
Yeah.
long period of time because there's not a lot of melody in it.
Yeah.
That's
you
right.
know?
And
that's
hooks
the,
aren't a thing in jazz.
no,
Yeah.
and that's the
Yeah.
music of today too.
Yeah.
Technically phenomenal, and what they're doing, I can't even wrap my head around. But it's not. It doesn't. You know, like listening to Crazy Train for the first time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and just feeling that.
Yeah,
oh my God.
you know, I've seen this too. I have one of my students who's super into that kind of stuff, and we're going through all the technical part of it. But I look at it and say, the thing I don't like, he's asking, why don't you like this band? I'm like, well, I think they're great players, but the thing that really makes me not like them is there's no rock and roll to any of it. There's no ballsy, swaggery rock and roll anything here. It's very much, I'm in my basement, I worked this out, and look what I did. I made this really cool thing in my basement. It's like, it has that vibe, but there's nothing like, fuck you, you know, I'm going to be who I am, you can go fuck off. That kind of, there's none of that to like rock and rollness to it. I listen to something like Rock and Roll Rebel from Ozzy, or I listen to, you know, Over the Mountain, or listen to Seek and Destroy from Metallica.
Dude,
You know,
listen to
it's-
everything by Skid Row.
or Sabotage.
Yeah.
You know, there's this ballsy sort of like badassness to it, but there's none of that in the new stuff at all. There's no rock and roll to it at all. And when my student said back to me that, which made me stop and think, he goes like, well, that's not the only way you can express yourself on an electric guitar. And then I just started punching him, and then I blacked out. I don't know what happened.
And then you blacked
after
out.
that. I was in a field. I woke
No,
up somewhere a
that's
couple days
all right.
later.
Dude,
I'm sure it was fine. But,
Yeah, dude, I came in, I dragged you out,
yeah.
and I put you
I'm
in
sure
the
he's
backseat
fine.
of the car.
But
yeah,
that,
that's fine.
anyway, I remember just thinking like, how sad, dude. You don't know what it is to rock. And the idea that she'd be 22 or 19 and not want to rock is so sad to me. I can't even imagine. You know what I mean? I'm in my 40s and I
miss
still wanna
songs
rock,
about
you know?
rocking.
Yeah, exactly. And people trying to stop.
And there's, yes, exactly. And there's definitely some, I mean, for me, you know, playing guitar and music, it's a vehicle for self-esteem.
And expression and
Yeah, absolutely, and about, you know, being yourself and you know, putting your identity forth, and not to mention all the cool people that you meet in the community and all of that. And
I'm here too. Okay, Ryan, you don't have to be like that. It's all good. Yeah.
I don't. It's okay.
He was looking at me when he said that.
Oh, okay.
That's, you know, like, well, I moved my hand around.
Yeah, he's like kind of like.
And you guys should give me credit that I didn't knock anything over.
Hey, that's
as I
we have,
did.
there's time
so.
still. There's time still.
Yeah, so you know, that kind of, I don't know if aggression is the word, but that like coming into your own.
Yeah, like the wanting to be your own person and play by your own rules sort of thing. I think this is going to sound, you talk about, man, I really feel like in a lot of the under 20 crowd or maybe mid 20s crowd, they're a little too comfortable. They're a little too happy to stay at home with mom and dad and have a PlayStation 4 and have food and their clothes made. They don't want to go make their own life. And like for us, I mean, I don't know about you guys, I was out of the house by like 19. Like as soon as I graduated,
18.
I was like right there. You know, I moved to Southern California, man, right away. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not going to be here, you know, just doing whatever life you chose for me. I'm going to do my own thing, and I am going to rock.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is what I did. And I remember that kind of attitude was like so prevalent when we were in teenagers and 20s, and I don't sense that at all from this new generation.
They don't have a boss screaming in their ear telling them who they're supposed to be.
Hey, man, Park Avenue leads to Skid Row.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
But at the same time, when we were kids, the first thing we wanted was our driver's license.
Yep.
So we can drive ourselves around and
not have
listen
to-
to what we want to listen to.
Yeah.
And that kids today, it's like 18, 19, maybe 20, I'll get a car.
Yeah, I'll make 25, 26
Right.
if they get a car. You know, just Uber. You know, it's.
Yeah,
You
so
know
it's
what really makes me
definitely
mad about
interesting.
kids nowadays? They always find themselves on my lawn, and it makes me so mad.
I was gonna say, so now
no
that
matter
we're
how many
past
times
the-
I tell them and yell at the clouds to go away, it just keeps happening.
So
Which
now
is why Paul Gilbert wrote that song, "Get Off My Yard."
Get Off My Yard. A great album, actually. By the way, yes, I'm a fan of. It's it's a song about the castle dragon.
Yes,
That's a good track.
I can't
off
imagine
album.
that you would be into that song. That seems. What would you like about
Yeah,
it?
oh, I know. What would I like about it? Yeah. Well, you know what? Paul Gilbert, since we're talking melody, just for our guitar playing listeners out there, he did an album called Stone Pushing Uphill Man, where he just played classic rock songs, but instead of a vocal, he used his guitar for the vocal melodies.
Yeah.
I've
It's called
recommended.
instrumental music, right?
Yes,
I have,
exactly.
I have 4, almost 5 of those records out, my friend.
Okay, awesome. Well,
This
so
might be new to you, but
Yeah.
it's actually been around for a really long time.
okay, well, cool. Well, he did like Loverboy covers. So I mean,
Oh,
if
wow,
you guys
have
some Loverboy covers available,
I don't have any
on
problem with
your
Loverboy. I like
albums,
Loverboy
yes.
very much. Yeah.
So anyway, instead of the lead Loverboy singing the words, he played it on his guitar, and so that's a good reference point, I think.
Paul Gilbert, though, I got to tell you, man, he's kind of lost his fire for rock these days. He's pretty much content to be like a hipster guitar lesson given dude.
Yeah, I mean,
You know
he
what
definitely. I mean, he had more fire than most for a long time.
for a long
so-
time, but it's now pretty much
you know,
gone. I mean, he's,
yeah.
you look at him now, I would never guess that that's. I've seen Paul Gilbert, like, who's that guy? Oh, that's Paul Gilbert? I thought he was just some weird old dude. You know, it's like, it's weird. He doesn't have any of that attitude, that vibe he used to have. I don't know. It's weird. I love Paul Gilbert, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying
Yes.
that, like, it makes me sad to see someone lose their fire like that. You know what I mean? It's, I don't know.
Yes.
No. It's true. I mean, like, you know, this is something I got to tell you that always bums me out when I talk to people who are guitar players, like in their 40s and 50s, is they'll say something to the effect, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, like, you know, well, yeah, when I started out, I was really into like Van Halen and Ozzy and Metallica, but, you know, then now I'm really mostly into Joe Pass and, you know, Charlie Christian. That's kind of where I'm at now.
As if that's what you're supposed to
As
be
if that's
considered.
evolution
Yeah.
as opposed to de-evolution. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things like, oh, that makes me so sad that you've gotten old and lost any fire in your heart. You
Or
know what
why
I mean?
can't you like both?
Yeah, it's
Well, yeah,
true.
why can't you like both? Wholeheartedly agree.
But don't tell me that's an evolution, that you've gotten better or you've improved yourself. It's like the guy in Rockstar on the stool with the acoustic guitar at the end of the movie or something, like, oh, he's really growing now. You know,
Right,
it's-
exactly.
I don't know. It pisses me off, the idea that you know, being in the rock and metal is something that you have to grow out of. It's got to be something that you kind of, it's a stage you go through. You know what I mean?
But there's still a ton of bands out there that are in their 60s and 70s where, and tell me you've done this, where you see so-and-so's coming to town and you're like, God, how old is he now? And then you look it up, it's like 71.
Yeah.
And they're still rocking the same songs they were rocking back in 1974.
Yep.
I got to give a shout out to Graham Bonnet, and he can still do it too. So,
Yeah. Oh, Graham Bonnet's a freaking freak of nature that he can still. Who's actually just too same thing. Glenn Hughes is no spring chicken, and
Yeah.
he still brings it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I think we got to really appreciate a lot of those bands that are of the classic era, because we're not going to have them for much longer. I think we're getting to that
Yeah.
end stage.
And I think this is a good segue into a discussion about, you know, cover bands versus tribute bands. Now, Tom has an awesome Pat Benatar tribute band called,
Invincible.
and everyone
I
should
even
go
have
out
a
and
key
see them
ring.
right away. Oh, yes,
Nice.
check out the key ring. This is awesome. You're going to love this.
It's titanium.
all right.
So, yes, there's
Is
a
it literally
titanium
invincible?
keychain.
Wow. So cool. Check that out.
Yeah, I saw it. It's awesome. I love this.
Yeah, that
this
is rad.
super cool, and I want one. So it's the band's logo. It's etched in titanium.
Heck yeah, dude.
None more metal.
That is
None more invincible.
That's
Exactly.
It's true.
I love this. This
So-
is super cool.
That brings up a good, like, what are your thoughts about doing a tribute band, and what do you see as like the scene right now with tribute bands versus like cover bands and things like that?
I think they're two completely different things. I love doing it. I mean, to me, getting to play Neil Giraldo, like, I don't think I'm Neil Giraldo. We don't think we're Pat Benatar. We're not even close. But we're trying to give the people a show like it was a Pat Benatar show. So she's out touring the world and doing her thing. We're here in Sacramento. You can come see us, you know? And it's really interesting to dive into somebody's playing. Just one person's playing that much, you know, which everybody did back in the day with Eddie, you know, when Eddie came out, and Randy and that. And there are guys that literally could play every single thing note for note. But it's really interesting diving into it, and you kind of get into their mind a little bit about how they write and how they come up with progressions and soloing and all that. And it's really fun to do.
Do you find it makes it easier for the next song once you've got like 5-6 songs down? You kind
No.
of you can get a sense for
They're
where they're
all
going.
different.
Sort of. Oh, really? It's interesting.
All different. Yeah. Some of those solos are just bizarre to play, and like where they go. And he didn't think, I mean, he's obviously a guitar player, but he didn't think in like scales like we do, you know, where
I'm
we
in
think
E minor
shapes.
and I'm going to do this. Yeah.
It was so all over the place, and they're such great solos. You know?
Classic. I mean,
The classic solos.
So do you think like are most of Neil's solos? Do you think they're composed or are they improvised?
So in doing a lot of Neil Giraldo solos and rhythms and all that, you read a lot of interviews, which there aren't a lot, you know, out there on him, which I think is a shame because he's a phenomenal guitar player.
For a lot of that Pat Benatar's career, it was just Pat Benatar. It wasn't Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo. You know, he was still her partner the whole time. It wasn't like a two-person thing. It was really seen as a one-person thing. So if there's an interview, they're going to interview Pat.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
I mean,
because Neil is literally just a phenomenal guitar
look at all
player.
those great songs, man. I mean, just hit after hit after hit. Just
Yeah,
incredible.
but the one thing that he said that I thought was really interesting, because somebody asked him, you know, are your solos constructed, and he goes, I know what the first note is, and after that, just improvise.
Yeah,
because he goes, I want to start the solo with the note that she finishes on. Mm-hmm. And when you run through a lot of the songs, it's true.
Yeah.
If she's hitting an A, he'll bend up a G to an A, or he'll land on the A and start it and then take off
so
from
there's
there.
that continuity going there. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That was funny. He's not a very schooled player, but he clearly, you know, has an incredible ear that leads him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd be what it's all about, is just hearing the notes in his head and going after it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, and also the compositions themselves. I mean, I don't know how many times I've played that breakdown in Heartbreaker. You know, that's a thing.
It is.
Yeah.
The solo at the end is a thing too.
I love it.
I still clinch up every time it comes to that end solo. It's like, please get it right. Please get it right.
Yeah, well, and you know what? And props to you for getting it right, because, I just took that as like, let's improvise in E minor time or F sharp minor if it's in the original.
Well, and it's really funny that the way that he does it now is so different from the original. You know, so he takes a lot of liberties now. So you're not hearing those same exact solos that we grew up listening to and hearing on the radio. Takes a lot of liberties with them and changes them around and plays what he feels now, which you have to imagine after 40 years, you're going to want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you're not going to want to keep playing the same thing over and over again. A lot of the 80s music that we grew up listening to, we want to hear that same,
like a theme or something. There's more of a melodic part. I would think he'd probably still do that, pretty much the same. But if it's like a solo, like a jamming out kind of solo, then totally do something different. I mean, that makes sense, all kinds of sense. I think that's what's interesting about the tribute band. For me, that's the difference between like a cover band and a tribute band. I think of a tribute band as more of a vocation. Like you're doing that, you have to be taking it seriously. You have to get the songs right. You have to put on the production at least as much as you can make happen. You know, if you're a cover band, then you're just basically like a glorified jukebox in the corner of a party somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
That's just doing a bunch of things. If you're a tribute band, you're really, like you were saying, you need to come put a show on that's kind of in keeping with the original artist, whatever that might be. If you're a Steely Dan,
and
tribute
some
band
of them,
whatever.
when you like, there's a couple Kiss bands out there that on a smaller scale, it's Kiss.
Yeah.
I mean, their stage production and all that, it's amazing.
I actually opened for one of those guys with Scott Helm Project years ago.
Oh, really? Was it Mini
I thought
Kiss?
It wasn't
the
Mini
Little
Kiss. No.
Oh.
It was an interesting show. I'll tell you, that was weird to be a part of that. But same. It's weird to see like they come walking through the crowd fully dressed as Gene and Paul and all. It was really like.
Did they let you guys like descend from the ceiling on the hydraulic
No,
lifts?
we just had to get our backline out before they got up on stage, and
You had to use your own hydraulic lifts. Lame.
I remember thinking like, this is weird. What is happening? Why am I opening for a Kiss band? I remember thinking that at the time.
So we actually hear from people of like the whole thing about why do people go see tribute bands, and we've heard some interesting things about it, which we were kind of talking about before. Of a lot of the bands that are out there now are only one member.
Yeah.
That you're going to see. You're going to see whatever it is that you knew as 5 members, and now there's just one.
Yeah, like Creedence Clearwater Revival is like, I think just a drummer is left or something.
What?
That's like all that's left.
Like if it's not John Fogerty, how could it be
exactly
Creedence Clearwater anything?
Seeing John Fogerty solo band is much more seating Creedence than whatever
Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah, exactly. But he's right. I mean, if you look at like Foreigners, a perfect example. There's only one original member that ever even appears with the band, and that's Mick Jones.
Oh man,
I think he's pretty much bowed out now.
Yeah, more or
Has
less.
he?
Yeah, because he's got some major health issues, I guess.
Yeah.
So isn't it? It's like Jeff Pilson on bass and backup vocals, and then there's
Kelly Hansen.
Kelly Hansen, and who
the
does
dude
a
from Hurricane,
phenomenal
right?
job.
He's a killer
he's
singer.
really
The
great.
band is phenomenal.
Yeah, the band's
and
great.
we're not taking anything away from it, but we grew up watching Foreigner, and listening
Lou
to
Graham
Foreigner.
and Mick Jones,
and these guys do a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
You know, but
it sounds like the record, man. It really does. It sounds exactly like the record. Yeah,
and that's high praise too. Because those Foreigner albums sound great.
Yeah, Foreigner is awesome. By the way, anybody out there who doesn't know
awesome.
that band or just rolls their eyes at Foreigner, you're nuts, dude. Foreigner is great.
That breakdown in Cold as Ice, when you hear all those little harmonies coming behind with the backup vocals.
Oh, there's so many moments in so many Foreigner songs.
Dude,
like
I want to
that,
know what love is. That's
dude,
like it's
I'm
close
waiting
to
for a girl
spiritual
like you.
Yeah.
What a song,
oh,
dude. I mean, that's
so good.
I mean, just incredible. That band does not get anywhere near enough love.
I'll tell you, I had a
much like Pat say.
Yeah.
dude, a buddy of mine when we were living together, my buddy Steve. We went and bought a record player at the Beat music store downtown. We bought Foreigner 4 on vinyl and just listened to it on vinyl all day long. It sounds so good.
Thank you for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Brian and Scott. Please make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast. Now let's get back to hearing all about the musician's life. It's so glamorous. Let's get back to it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the further removed from that band's heyday we get, the better that stuff sounds. Because when I listen to anything from like the 70s and 80s, when I listen to it now, it's like so good. It's like fine wine. It gets better and better and better, especially when you compare it to what's considered pop music nowadays. And you compare the two side by side, it's like this one is, some vintage 1700 bottle of Chardonnay, and this one over here is like just whatever. It's like the swill you buy from $1.99. It's like it's not even comparable.
$2 Chuck.
Exactly. It's incredible. And you listen to like the Fleetwood Mac Rumors album or something, and just the songcraft, the performances, the sound is incredible. Foreigner, like Pat Benatar, that stuff. It's going to get better and stronger. I think that it's moving forward. That's going to become sort of something music becomes more and more fake. It's just more electronic produced and less person produced.
And I think there's another angle to this too. So coming from having played in cover bands myself for years and years, one of the reasons I don't do it anymore is that the market is saturated with cover bands playing.
I thought it was going to be you can't stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning.
That as well. These things have now intersected. Yes, my early bedtime, Betty by time, is intersected with the saturated market, and I wonder if, like, since being in a tribute band requires so much more to be good, is that kind of a filter that guarantees quality?
I would like to think so.
Okay,
I mean, to be in a tribute band and say that you're a whatever insert artist here tribute band, I would like to think that A, you love that band's music.
Sure.
B, you're going to try and go out there and perform those songs as best to the original that you can possibly do.
Yep.
Not just phone in a solo that doesn't sound anything like the original. It's a whole different world.
Yeah, I know in my experience too, like when someone says that this is a tribute band, I always take it a lot more seriously. Okay, these guys probably really put a lot into it, because if you're just a cover band, like there's a million cover bands and who knows, who cares? If you're a tribute band, it means you're really doing it for real.
That's right.
That to me, and
the musicianship's got to be much better.
That also means that from a financial perspective, your possibilities are much better. You can get paid a lot more if you're a good tribute band. You're much more valuable as a marketable piece out there than just
which is why I will
band.
be forming the Scott Allen tribute band.
Nice.
Starting next week. So.
Right. It's funny. I was going to form a Baja Men tribute band, but that's just it was going to be literally like 10 hours of just Who Let the Dogs Out in different combinations. You know what I mean? That was going to be it. But I don't know. Maybe it's not as. I should have thought that through more. It's not as commercially viable as I would have thought.
Dude, as long as you book my Yoko Ono tribute.
Nice. You open.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And then I'll have another tribute, like something really, really great, like maybe like a Ricky Martin tribute or something. That'd be great.
Ricky Martin, you'd have to get someone who could dance and sing.
Are you guys all pining to open up for my Scott Allen tribute?
I think so. Yes, absolutely.
I will be headlining.
That's awesome.
We'll have our own tribute band.
I definitely take tribute bands way more serious. I mean, honestly, I've seen some tribute bands that are better than seeing the original band. You know what I mean? It's like not even a joke. Look, the Atomic Punks, dude, back in the day, were way better than Van Halen. Like,
when I moved down to LA, I went to FM station. This is like 1996. And I go down there, and my friend says, we're going to go see...
I was there, man. 96, I wasn't in mine.
Yeah. We're going to go see a tribute band. Then I really didn't know what a tribute band was. because we didn't have them up here.
Was it Russ and Ralph in that band at that time? Yeah.
Oh, no. Sorry. It was Bart.
It was Bart. Okay.
Yeah, Bart was in the band. But the closest thing we had to a tribute band was Rob Hanna doing Rod Stewart.
Oh, wow.
And he was phenomenal, like phenomenal. And he'd play up in Tahoe and Reno. And
I think I saw them up in Reno once. Yeah.
Yeah, they were great. But that was, and every city had.
That was weird.
Are we still?
We are recording.
Does everyone's ears work?
Hey, did you conjure Satan when we were looking?
I did, yes. Well, it's known that, I'm getting ready to go see Merciful Fate.
I was wondering why you were drawing like a pentagram in that.
It is October.
I just draw pentagrams.
And that skull, is that what that was about?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. I've got some virgin's blood in the fridge. I was going to
just
make
have
a
it.
cocktail
Wait,
later.
quick question, though. Is it homogenized?
And gluten-free.
Exactly.
It's heterogeneous. Heterogeneous. Yes.
All right. He's got the highest standards when it comes to children's virgin blood.
And vocabulary.
Absolutely, exactly.
Yes. So
I go to see, like I said, I didn't really know much about tribute bands back then. So I go down there, and I think they had like 3 different tribute bands. They had like an AC/DC one, I think it was a Styx tribute band, and then the Atomic Punks. And the first 2 were great. And when I saw Ralph come running out on stage, I was like, that's David Lee Roth.
Yeah, no, like him.
Literally, sound. I mean, the whole band was phenomenal. It was like going to see a Van Halen show.
Yeah, but like 1979 Van Halen.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. That sets the bar. I mean, look at like Rain, the Beatles tribute. If you look at the Pink Floyd, the Australian Pink Floyd touring band, it's just. You may as well be seeing classic Prime. And I think that's the whole thing. If you're going to do something like that, you have to be all in. You have to like get the clothes those guys wear. You have to play the instruments they play. You have to try and get the tones exactly like as close as you can. You got to play the songs just like that. And they'll do things like, they'll do whole albums. Like we're going to do the White Album. We're going to do a thing. And I think that's what differentiates a cover band from a tribute band. You have to really take it as a level of seriousness that you have to take. That's
but
totally
there's also
different.
a lot of bands, a lot of the tribute bands that are out there, like the Iron Maidens, and the Atomic Punks and bands like that, they tour.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally go
Iron,
country.
Vakken Open Air,
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's funny. That shows you the hunger there is for that music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the original bands are either like Van Halen was inactive for 20 years, didn't do anything really. And then, people needed some kind of outlet. Same thing with, Maiden. If you live in a certain part of the world that they don't come to, that's the closest you can come to seeing Iron Maiden. And those songs are so great, people want to hear them. It's like the Pat Benatar thing. Those songs are so great, people want to hear that. You know what I mean?
But then you have a band like Tom Petty, and Tom's not here anymore.
Yeah.
So
all you have is tribute bands.
All you have is tribute bands.
Or like a Bon Scott or like AC/DC tribute.
Prince.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, I think that's something that is a viable. I mean, we've talked before about the musician's life and how to make a living as a musician. If teaching is, to my mind, the only thing you can really hang.
Can
your hat
I listen
on.
back to that episode?
Oh yeah.
So I can
absolutely.
learn some stuff.
Yeah. We don't know anything about it. We're just rambling. But the idea
tips.
of teaching, session work, performing live, putting out records, that's the way to make a living. But honestly, one of the best paying things of a live performer is doing something like a tribute band or a high level cover band, or you're doing corporate, doing weddings, things like that. That's the kind of thing that you could really make serious cash doing, but you got to be all in on that, and that's got to be something you're cool with doing.
Well, the difference, I will say, one of the differences, huge differences between tribute bands and cover bands is the pay scale.
Sure, yeah.
There's cover bands that literally will just go work for
Play for beer or
50,
whatever.
yeah, 50, $100 or whatever. But tribute bands, I mean, there's some of them that make $8,000-$10,000 a night.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It can be a really good financial thing as a
Yeah.
musician if you're all in. You can't half-ass that kind of thing.
No.
That's what it comes down to.
That's
you have
right.
to really go in there and be all in. And if you are all in, then you can make serious money doing that.
Yeah, you can't
for
be
sure.
semi-pro.
Yeah. You got to do what that is your vocation.
That's
That is
right,
what you're
yeah.
doing.
Well, and I would like to think, it's just me, pretending to be the Neil character and all that, and learning his stuff and trying to learn the solos note for note and the rhythms note for note and play it.
That's just being a pro, man.
You can't get a BC Rich Eagle like his.
Yeah.
So I built a
He was
BC
telling
Rich
me about
Eagle.
this.
Yeah, from scratch. And
That's
it's
so
awesome.
cool.
And so I'm like, okay, well, if I'm really going to do this, even though he doesn't play them anymore,
No.
he plays Les Pauls and
Pauls,
stuff like
yeah.
that. But if you look back in the day, it was that BC Rich Eagle, and he had the Sunburst version of it, and they didn't make that again, or that I've ever seen. So I'm like, if I want it, I guess I'm going to have to make it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's fantastic. That's such a.
It is so cool.
That's a huge part of authenticity, doing that sort of thing. You know what I mean? You couldn't just like you're a Van Halen tribute. You can't walk out there with like a a Jag Stang or something like that.
or an Ibanez that you painted.
You got to do it right.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, you really shouldn't go anywhere with a Jag Stang.
That's true. Straight, no, you can go to the wood chipper with it.
To the wood
that's
chipper,
acceptable.
to the fireplace.
Using it as flotsam to survive a shipwreck, maybe that would be an acceptable use of a Jaguar. You know?
True.
But there's like the Fleetwood Mac tribute bands that play around that are phenomenal, and they play that. I think it's a Turner. Custom one that Lindsay had. You know?
I'd be so happy if there's a Fleetwood Mac cover band that only did the Peter Green era that no one knows about. That'd be so awesome.
So psychedelic.
Where's Rhiannon? When is
what's the green
what's happening here?
It's like,
Don't
no, we
stop
got
thinking about
Oh
tomorrow.
Well and Black Magic Woman for you. Oh Well's an
That
amazing
guy's
song.
business plan was not top notch. That's all I can say. We're gonna do a Scorpions tribute, but we're only gonna do the Uli eras. I would love that. Come on, someone do that, please.
I do have one idea for like a mixed tribute band that I think would totally slay. Okay, because you'd have to have horn players, all right? So like the first set or the first set and a half, all Oingo Boingo. The second set and a half, all Huey Lewis and the News.
Oh, and then the third set doing all the film music that Danny wrote.
Oh, shit. If you could pull that off, sure.
Heck yeah, man.
That would be phenomenal.
Wouldn't it be Oingo Boingo for like an hour and a half, right? And
Oingo
then
Boingo for
Huey
anybody
Lewis
under
for an hour
20,
and
just
a
so you
half.
know, that's not a name, that's not a word that Ryan just made up just now. That's this great band from the 80s called Oingo Boingo. Danny Elfman, who's the leader of that band, you know him as one of the greatest film composers of the last 40 years. Go ahead, continue. I just want to make sure anybody under 20 knows what we're talking about.
Like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Anything Tim Burton did.
Anything Tim Burton did, that's Danny Elfman. Yeah, absolutely.
Spider-Man.
I'll go
as well.
back even further. They appeared in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Yes.
Oh, did they really? I didn't know
right.
that. Rodney Dangerfield, for
That's
anybody
right.
under 20, was a comedian in the 80s and 70s.
And Who Do You Want to Be Today was on the soundtrack of Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oingo Boingo classic. That would slay live. So yeah, that's my idea for a tribute band.
It's a very cool
Mixed
idea.
tribute
So
band.
that brings up something really interesting as far as tribute bands, because there are a lot of like tribute bands that I would love to do that me and 3 other people would show up and see.
Yeah.
But when you think about doing a tribute band, you have to think about, is there enough material to satisfy however long you're supposed to play, So sometimes we'll get asked to play like a 3-hour show. And I'm like,
Yeah, each song's 3.5 minutes long.
There's not 3 hours of hits.
Yeah.
the Crimes of Passion album, which everybody knows is like one of the premier Pat Bennett, with Hell is for Children and Hit Me With Your Best Shot and Treat Me Right and You Better Run, all those songs, great. It was 36 minutes.
Yeah. Dude,
Wow.
Van Halen, Women and Children First is like 27 minutes.
They were literally like Ramones albums.
Yeah.
It's like 20 songs and it was 23
And
minutes
each
long.
song is like 3 minutes long. So,
Yeah.
and I know he's like, all right, we're going to play it again. Here's Love is a Battlefield one more time. It's like,
It's still Battlefield, everybody.
exactly.
So when you think about doing a tribute band, that's one of the mates that you have to think about, because there's a lot of great bands that I love, and and especially doing the Pat Benatar one, we always think about like what would be a good band to pair with that, and it's like, oh, I love Scandal. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, okay, there's 4
Patty
songs.
Smythe, right? Well,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they
Killer
only
voice,
had,
by the way, man.
oh my
Killer
God,
voice.
not saying they only had 4 songs, but there were only like 4 radio
Yeah.
songs.
Big
So
hits,
unless you
yeah.
were a big fan, like I'm a huge Missing Persons fan,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I defy
Is
anybody
there
to
enough
name
hits?
me.
Let's see.
5,
I mean,
maybe.
yeah, it'd be like mental hopscotch, but the general public wouldn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
You have the opening closing song, and you got to figure out what to do in the middle.
Yeah.
That's
so
Yeah.
you really have to think about that as, does this band have enough material to actually sustain an audience?
Yeah.
And even going to like Fleetwood Mac. It's like Fleetwood Mac, if you're just going to do the Fleetwood Mac that we know,
Yeah.
the band that we know.
the Stevie Nicks version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had Rumors, you had the Fleetwood Mac album, and then you had Tusk and one other.
Yeah.
Now you got all the Peter Green stuff that you can pull from.
Yeah. And then
that
people will
most
look at it as
people
like a
aren't
cool
gonna know.
Easter egg.
Well,
Sort of like,
even that's a deep cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then do you do Stevie Nicks?
Yeah.
You could.
Now
I
you're not
think.
doing Fleetwood Mac though.
Yeah.
But people like the average person probably wouldn't notice the difference if you're doing some like Stand Back. They probably
Yeah.
see that as a Fleetwood Mac song. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. Edge of 17.
Yeah, exactly. Which
So
are
that's
great
where it gets-
songs. I love
they're
Stevie Nicks,
amazing.
man. Yeah.
That's where it gets really weird when you think about doing a tribute band. It's like, okay, we're going to do a Fleetwood Mac tribute band, but we're only going to do Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but are you going to do the Peter Green stuff that nobody's going to know.
But it's still Fleetwood Mac. I mean, that's still Fleetwood Mac.
It's still
sure.
Fleetwood Mac, but nobody's going to know it.
But if you did the Stevie Nicks solo stuff, a lot of people wouldn't notice.
Everybody would know those songs too.
They would know those songs, and they would just assume they were Fleetwood Mac songs, even though they aren't. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, we watched Stevie Nicks perform live. She does a real mix of all of it. So it's not like she really differentiates it either. It's like these are all songs that she was a part of. You know what I mean? It's crazy. You know, it's funny you say that. It's my only experience with playing in a cover band was very briefly in the very late 90s. I was in a Van Halen tribute band for like maybe 4 months or something. We didn't even get out and play at all. But I remember we had that argument about, are we going to do all of Van Halen or are we going to just do the Roth stuff? And I was in favor of doing all of it. I love the Sammy stuff. And I love the Roth stuff too. But I was like, let's do all of it. Let's do Cabo Wabo. Let's do Summer Nights. And then we'll also do Panama and Hopper Teacher, and we'll do Running with the Devil. And all.
But then you also do Sammy Hagar.
That's what I'm saying. We do all of it.
Yeah.
That was what the singer who drew a line in the sands, like, we're not going to do any of the Sammy stuff. Which I'm going to guess is probably he couldn't sing the Sammy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But he was like, I only do Dave stuff. And that we actually was right when the band finally split up. And we ended up becoming another band after that. But I remember that was my experience with that whole, like, you just pick an era and it's going to... And to me, I always thought... It's weird, and just to sidetrack on Van Halen for a second, like that people feel like they need to pick a side on that. Like,
it always resorts back to Van Halen.
What's that?
It always resorts back to Van Halen.
Well, I mean, music started in 1978, so that's why we have to go back to the very beginning, the prime moment of history.
It really gets year zero.
Year one of the world is 1979, and for as far as music's concerned. So anyway, but that to me always felt weird that you had to. And I remember that was my first like real experience. Like, really, you guys are that pissed about the Sammy era that you won't even play the songs? They're hit songs that we can make money playing these guys.
Yeah, so
now, hold on. Now, here would be a really interesting thing to do. Is if you guys ever heard the band called CC Seeger?
I haven't. No,
they're phenomenal. So it's CCR, and then Bob Seger.
It's an actual band. This is
Paul Holgate and Randy Scholes.
Paul Holgate from Ibanez.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing singers, right? Yep. The band is phenomenal too. They come out and do a show where Randy will do 3 CCR songs, and then Paul will do 3 Bob Seger, and then they'll keep flopping back and forth.
That's cool.
So, and they're phenomenal. Love those guys. Going to your Van Halen thing, it would actually be really, I would go see it, and I might actually do this. You do a Van Halen tribute band, and you have a David Lee Roth guy come out, so like a Ralph, that did Dave phenomenal.
Better than Dave, yeah.
And then you have a Sammy Hagar guy come out. They could flop back and forth.
Well, I know that's for the tour before Eddie died. That's what they were talking about doing, was doing a tour with both guys, which would have been incredible. You kidding me? That would have crushed.
But then you'd have to like hire a Gary Sharon guy for like one song.
How about Gary Sharon? I'm sure he'd love to do that.
Just hire Gary Sharon.
Let me call him up real quick. And see.
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure he'd be down for that. But the idea of that, because I mean, it's funny how everyone's broken these little tribes. Like, oh, my guy's the right guy. It's like, dude, they're both great. I mean, I could see hating the Sammy Hagar stuff if it sucked, but it didn't. It was awesome.
Phenomenal.
Okay, so here's a deep cut. You know who should do that band?
Who?
Mitch Malloy.
Oh yeah, well he does that. He does that.
Does he?
Yeah, him and Pete Thorne will go out and do shows together.
Yeah.
I really wanted him to be the singer in Van Halen.
He turned out he was a Pimp Ray singer in Great White.
I wish
that was his consolation prize.
Okay,
I wish bands would put aside all their bullshit for just 5 minutes and realize you guys are 65, 70 years old.
You're gonna die.
And you're still bitching about stuff that happened back in 1979 or whatever, and just like put it aside. Because if you think about this, I think personally this would be the biggest concert of the year if you got Arnell, Steve Perry, and Greg Raleigh, even Steve Augeri.
Yeah,
bring Steve Augeri out too.
He made a great record with him, man.
Yeah, and have Ross Valerie, Steve Smith, Jonathan Cain, and Neil Schon come out,
and Robert Fleischman.
Nobody knows who that is, though, in the context of that band. Man, you know, the Randy Jackson, though. Randy Jackson, because he actually was a part of that band for a while.
But most people know Journey as, Jonathan, Neil, Ross, Steve, and Steve.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. So
that's the classic era. Yeah.
But you have Greg Raleigh come out, and Greg, Ross, Steve, and Neil do like 3 songs, 4 songs from the early Journey.
Yep.
Yes, there was a Journey before Steve Perry. Then bring Steve Perry out, and Steve can
chronologically do it.
Chronologically kind of do a Journey show. Yeah. But you can have Steve, because Steve Perry obviously can't sing like he used to.
Yeah.
But
for
Steve
the duration he's not going to do a 2-hour show or something. Yeah.
Steve can come out and do 2 or 3 songs. of classic Journey, you know,
that he could sing with his current voice.
Lights Don't Stop Believing, and you know, Where Were You? I don't know. So, but then Steve Augeri comes out and does, you know, Line of Fire, and you know, does a couple more songs, and then Arnell, and then you bring Greg Raleigh out and you do the duet and all that stuff. I mean, it would be phenomenal if they could all get along together and play as a band.
I gotta tell you, man, there's no chance in hell that Ross Valerie and Steve Smith are ever going to play with Journey again, because you know what happened with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's.
But I don't know if Steve Perry's going to do it now with all their stuff going on.
I know that's definitely not going to happen.
I think figure Steve Perry's royalty check has to still be pretty.
It's huge, but he's also got a say in the band still, because he's, you know, even though he's not in the band, he still has a say in the band, which is interesting. I mean, I could see if that's his legacy, he's going to have some kind of say so what's going on. But his voice, I mean, I think the time for a Journey reunion with Steve Perry was 10 years ago. I don't think that now is really the time to do it. I think that with Journey's doing the right thing, and from their perspective, I'm sure they're seeing it as the right thing. We're going to go out with our singer who can hit all the notes. We're going to play all the songs people want to hear. I think Randy Jackson's playing bass in the band still.
That's awesome.
No, he's not.
He's not really out of it again.
They had a whole band of like Narada Michael Walden and
Castronova's back playing drums, right?
Castronova's back, so it was a whole weird thing. And now they've got another keyboard player, so they got 2 keyboard players.
That's interesting.
And then bass, guitar, and drums, and it's different.
The stuff those guys have is so great. Their songs are just so phenomenal, and for so many, you can sit there and do like a 30-song set, and every one of them be hits. With that band, which is incredible. I mean, Def Leppard's kind of in that territory too. They have like so many hits. I mean, those guys can tour literally till the wheels fall off, as long as they can get something that's a reasonable facsimile of classic Journey. You know what I mean? Neil Sean's still phenomenal. He still plays great.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and
I still want to put together a Def Leppard tribute band, but do everything before Pyromania.
Oh, I'm totally down.
Just High and Dry and On Through the Night.
You know what? I learned most of the songs on Through the Night for like a birthday party a few years ago. So I'm ready. Let me know.
You know what's funny? This is unpopular opinion, but the only Def Leppard record I don't like of their classic era is On Through the Night. I'm a huge fan of High and Dry.
So
Ryan, let's talk about it On Through the Night.
Absolutely, man. Rehearsal at my place tomorrow night, anytime.
No, I mean, I don't. I remember listening to that record and hearing what you guys were saying and think, oh, this is going to be great. I love Def Leppard. I mean, High and Dry is great. Pyromania is great. I love Hysteria. This is
Wasted.
Rock Brigade.
Rock Brigade.
It's fine.
Hello,
when the
America.
walls come tumbling down.
So good.
I just remember very immature, even when I was a kid listening to that. I was thinking like, okay, there's
Hello.
I wore that cassette tape out.
Did he just say it was immature?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rick Allen was like 15,
Yeah, that's right.
16.
Totally. Dude, like
yes,
Joel was like
immature.
19. Those guys were all,
Now here's the thing. Just to bring,
because I discovered Def Leppard on Pyromania. That's when I first heard that song.
So to bring our conversation full circle,
No,
one thing that the younger generation doesn't get to experience anymore is seeing a really cool album cover.
That's true.
Like an 18-wheeler hauling a giant Les Paul through space, and then buying it because of that, and then like finding out it's rad.
The idea of buying the record because of the cover looks like is definitely.
I mean, it can go wrong. You could have picked up "Bat Out of Hell" by Meatloaf.
This is gonna be the baddest thing ever. Yeah.
And you know, and I would do anything for what? What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But anyway, 8 times out of 10, it worked out okay.
That is so funny.
And that was one of those albums, man.
Interesting
it's really
trivia,
good.
though, on Def Leppard. What amp was used
Wait, on which album?
Hysteria?
Oh, it was the Tom Schultz Rockman.
Yeah, the Sands amps.
And there was
too,
some other kind of direct amp thing.
Yeah. The live was actually, I know that the Hysteria tone was actually plugged straight into the board. There was actually no amp at all. So, which you can hear that there's that chiminess. There's like nothing there. There's no body of that sound at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I mean, that is one of the best produced albums I've ever heard.
That's why it took 3 years.
Yeah, Hysteria. But it cost like millions to do it. I can't believe how much.
Right.
But then they sold like 20 million copies. Who cares?
And then the band re-recorded it, and I can appreciate why, because they want to get the proceeds and stuff. But you can't just re-record Hysteria.
You know what's funny is when they lost Mutt Lange as a partner, you can really see how big a part of the band he was.
But how crazy is it to think that, I mean, as much as you love Pyromania,
My favorite Def Leppard record for sure. Yep.
that album was huge. I mean, it was ginormous, right? They were almost broke.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't know if this Hysteria thing doesn't pan out.
By the way, early in that record's release, it didn't. It wasn't until
Yeah.
like about maybe 6 months in that it finally hit and started taking off. And they had like 6 hit singles off that album, and it sold like 10 million copies in its time. I think it's over 20 now.
Well,
It's
the first song that they released, I think, was "Woman," right?
you're right, Women. Yeah.
And
Women.
It was Women.
It was Women. Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it didn't really do.
It's a
very
great
well.
tune, by the way. I love that song. But,
Oh, love them both.
Yeah.
So.
Rocket, I'm not as crazy about. I always kind of had an issue with Rocket. I always thought it was kind of a bullshit song. You know what I mean? But I love freaking...
Well, Rocket plays into my whole idea of putting a band together that plays nothing but songs with the word rock in it.
Yes,
and the band was Rock.
Yeah, didn't we talk about this
That's
like 15
actually pretty
years
rich.
ago?
There's a lot of songs right there, you know?
Yeah, we had a pretty
Because
good
you can go
list.
all the way back to Bill Haley and the Comets.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I mean,
dude.
you can go 50s all the way up.
So many...
As long as you play the 50 song in kind of like an 80s metal style.
yes, exactly.
But see, the problem is, and this will pretty much define this whole thing about kids don't know rock anymore because there's no songs with the word rock in it.
No.
Well,
That's
also
true.
they see rock as like their dad's music or their
Yeah.
grandpa's music. The same way that we saw like Frank Sinatra when we were kids. Like we didn't see that as our music. Like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, you know, the big band swing. That's not our music. You know, Bill Haley and the Comets isn't our music.
Definitely
You know?
not. But I
You
mean,
know?
at least it's melodic though. I can think of Frank Sinatra melodies. They're in my
And I
head
think
as
of Bill
part
Haley and,
you know.
Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis as kin. Those guys are like grandfathers. You know, those are people who are part of the same family as us.
Yeah,
you know
totally.
what I mean? I really do see it that way. But I mean, I didn't see like Frank Sinatra as having anything to do with us. You
Well,
know what I
right
mean?
now I'm actually doing this whole thing of where I'm transcribing a bunch of 50 songs and I'm writing out this whole thing on 50s music. I'm going to do 60s and all that too, 70s and just keep going on. But having to learn a lot of this 50s music right now, the appreciation I have for it, like the James Burton stuff, was
Oh, yeah.
ridiculous.
Oh,
I mean,
Well, dude, think about Elvis's guitar player, Scotty. I mean, that guy's another
Yeah.
guy, no credit at all. It's like, oh, Elvis changed, dude. Like that, Elvis wasn't Elvis without guitar player. Without
Yeah,
that guitar player.
no doubt.
who
You know?
was James Burton later on?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
but that those guys were the people who inspired like the guys like Jeff Beck and you know Jimmy Page and all that. That's where that came from. That combined with the electric blues players in the 50s and 60s, you know, that came out of Chicago and
Yep.
the South. I mean, that's really where like the British invasion came from. You know, which is all interesting because music started in '78, so this is like prehistory. This is like some kind of weird.
I know
It's like some
did-
weird mythology that we created, like you know.
This was called BC.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's Eru Alar who created Middle
Yes,
Earth. I think that's
BV
you know
before Van Halen. Yes, and I hear they. I hear they just dug up the remains of the Kinks
Yeah,
somewhere
exactly.
out in the desert. Yeah, totally. They just discovered.
I'm going
the
to guess there was
Davies
some kind of
brothers. Yeah.
argument between the two brothers that killed themselves in the desert.
Well,
or
of
something,
course,
yeah.
the skeletons are both like reaching for
Strangling
each other's necks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least they're consistent.
One day we'll have to do a podcast on the Three Kings, as they've
Oh.
been called.
Yes.
Eric Clapton,
Okay.
Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page, who all grew up within a mile of each other.
Yeah.
And literally taught music to everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
that most people learned all their guitar playing from those three guys.
Well, you know what's funny to
Yeah,
think about that
that'd be a
too
great
is that
topic.
like that back then the idea of being an electric guitar player was such an unusual thing. It was like seen as that weird kid with that weird guitar. That's so weird to think that. But it is. That's actually getting that way again now because
Yeah.
the kids
Yeah.
don't know what electric guitar is now. Everyone wants to play either acoustic guitar or ukulele, which makes me incredibly sad.
So some of the kids still want to rock, though.
You're right. Some do.
Some of them
Thank
do.
freaking God. For
Yeah.
The
that.
ukulele is just a bass.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
But
you couldn't
way,
you
way
couldn't
less
afford the
cool.
other two strings, so you just
Yep.
decide to get a ukulele.
And it's, your hands are
I
so
really-
small you can't like you know reach.
Well, and this would be a topic for a whole other podcast too. But like, I think people seek out ukulele stuff because they think it's going to be easy.
yeah, maybe. Or they just want to be lame. I think that's what it is. Like,
Well,
I
those
could play
things go
guitar
hand
and be
in hand.
cool, but I want to be lame, so I'll play ukulele. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I
It's
I
want
like
to
how
do things
Ryan
that
was trying to sound more intelligent by calling it an ukulele.
Yes, thank you.
yes, from the.
I'm going to get one
from the
over on you
Latin
guys
uke.
and call it the
La, la, in the
ukulele.
original, yes.
It's like that's like something you would.
Hawaiian.
The only acceptable use of a ukulele is at a luau. I'm pretty sure that's the only place it's okay.
And I hate to tell you that the first letter is a U, hence ukulele.
Oh, I was doing the. I thought it was a U with like an umlaut over it. In the original Hawaiian, yes.
It's I think
in the
it's-
original
in the original Hawaiian is
in the
an umlaut.
original
There's umlauts in the original
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian. What are you talking about?
I'm just making stuff up now.
Accent agu. You know, it's like that's part of the original Hawaiian. Yeah, we want to be really culturally very, very sensitive on this
Hawaii,
podcast. Exactly.
yeah, Hawaii.
Nothing's
yeah.
more fun than arguing about original Hawaiian with three white dudes.
Yeah, right. No joke.
All right. That's
Well,
a good
right
place
on.
to wrap it on up, guys. Well, anyway, Thomas, thank you so much for spending
Yeah,
some time
thanks
with us
for having
today
me, guys. It
and
was
sharing your
fun.
thoughts. It really is. Ryan, any last thoughts?
No, just man, Tom. Thanks for joining the podcast, and hopefully this is just the first time of many. And
I'd like to share my thought.
I was going to say I didn't have any first thoughts to have, so it's
I'm just glad I was able to put my whole idea for Oingo Boingo in the news.
I
out
like this.
there.
I think the name Oingo Boingo is inherently delightful.
Or
I'm
like
just
Huey
happy to hear it.
Boingo. That would be a good one. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks for everybody out there listening.
Yep.
And
please make sure to rate and subscribe to our podcast with 5-star reviews only. That's the only acceptable. I think when you click on this podcast, you are agreed to only give 5-star reviews.
Well, there's some fine print.
Or to buy, I think, 10 copies of the new Ex Aegis album when it drops later this fall.
Yes, the new Ex Aegis album. And then, and Tom, do you want to plug anything?
Can I grade this on Yelp?
Only with 5 stars.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no. I was there, man.
Yes.
I saw a pube. There was no pubes in your
I
studio.
found a hair though,
Ah, damn it.
but I think it was mine.
Ah, okay.
Cool.
Is
All
there anything you
right.
want to plug before you?
I'm good.
Well,
All right.
so go out and see Invincible sometime.
If you're in the Northern
They're
California area.
phenomenal. Yep, wherever they're playing, you should be there. And a keychain because it's awesome too.
It is invincible.
All right, thanks so much, you guys. Peace.
Peace.